The Independent, Trump looking to ban transgender people from having a gun and declaring them mentally ill. Oh, boy. The DOJ is reportedly considering a proposal to restrict trans Americans from possessing firearms, making a dramatic reversal of the Trump admin's pledges to preserve Second Amendment rights while escalating the president's attacks against trans Americans. The proposal, according to CNN, comes in the wake of a mass shooting in Minneapolis Catholic Church, allegedly committed by a 23-year-old trans woman, which has fueled conspiracy theories and right-wing outrage, baselessly alleging trans people are predisposed to commit violence.
It's a disgusting framing, may I just say?
Indeed. Since taking office, Donald Trump has issued a series of directives targeting trans Americans, including an executive order that erases federal recognition of trans people and other measures that restrict gender-affirming healthcare and bans trans athletes from competing in women's sports. The DOD has also forced out thousands of trans service members. Trans people are not linked to higher rates of violence, and the overwhelming majority of mass attacks are committed by cisgender men. I'm going to pause real quick and say that's a lie.
Well, which ethnicity of cisgender men?
Yeah.
Well, I love ChatGPT because it's basically an establishment machine where you can test the perception of the establishment. And so when this happened, I sent the story, I took the link and I posted it in ChatGPT. Without saying anything, just sharing the story, it responded with, trans people are not more likely to commit mass shootings. I asked it, how come several of the latest, most recent mass shootings were committed by trans people? And it then said, white cisgender men commit more mass shootings than any other demographic. And when I asked it about black men, it said, when black men in Baltimore, St. Louis, Chicago, and D.C. commit mass shootings, and they do commit a disproportionately high amount of mass shootings, those don't count because they're motivated by poverty, whereas white cisgender men are motivated by mental illness issues or political causes.
Insane.
Which is like, okay, well, now you're lying. But that's the narrative machine. The reason why ChatGPT says this is because our news institutions will say, cisgender white men commit more mass shootings. And when you go, what about the black community in Baltimore and D.C., where there's a disproportionately high amount of mass shootings? And then the mainstream media just says, well, due to poverty and other factors, we don't consider those. Our experts have decided those aren't the same thing as a mass shooting. And it's like, it is. But back to the story, I want to say this. This is one of the smartest things the Trump admin has ever done. This is a master move. It is akin to a fork in chess. You ever see one of those beautiful moves where you got the rook in the bottom left corner and they're king, and you put the bishop and they're in check, and now that's like, you got to move your king out of check, and they do, and then boom, bishop takes the rook. That's what this is. Democrats and liberals have two choices. They can decide to go to the Supreme Court to defend the right of trans Americans to own guns, and I agree they should be allowed to own guns, which means Democrats will be forced to argue in favor of gun rights, which is going to be real tough for them, or they're going to have to abandon trans as a demographic. They're going to have to outright say, we're not going to go to bat for you in this process. You just lose your rights to have guns.
You are presuming that they will not continue to live with crippling cognitive dissonance.
I didn't say that. I said they're going to have to fight on our behalf or abandon. So I don't care what their motivation is. I don't care what lies they want to say. I don't care what claims they want to make. When liberals and the ACLU and Democrats go to the Supreme Court and say, you can't ban trans people from having guns, the Supreme Court then says, you're right. Everybody can have guns.
I think chat's going to hate me and accuse me of being a communist European or something.
I'll do that anyways.
I say this, we invented American liberty. That's fine. I'm happy that you guys get to retain it, even if my country doesn't. But I think it's entirely consistent with having a republic capable of guaranteeing its own security with an armed citizenry and banning crazy, demented transsexuals from owning firearms that they will use on people other than themselves. I think that is completely consistent. And yes, there's lots of fear about the government just arbitrarily classifying people as mentally ill and confiscating your guns.
They'll do that anyways.
They're going to do that anyway. You can put reasonable limitations on who should and shouldn't own firearms, including the people like, Audrey Hale or that Dylan Butler person in Iowa or this brand new trans shooter who just hate Christian children and want to murder them en masse.
The people that make the argument, oh, you can't do this because then the left will do it to you. We've already seen that the left will do it regardless of what the right does. Now, that this particular issue aside, right, I don't know if it's actually the right move to say trans people can't have guns. I think there's probably a case-by-case decision. because I don't think that everybody that's trans is likely to go and shoot up a church. I think it's far more likely if they're immersed in the LGBTQ ideology, and there are probably other factors. I don't think that a blanket ban would work, but that doesn't mean that, I'm also not going to sit there and be like, oh, we can't do this because the left will do it to us, because that's not an argument. They're going to do it either way. If they had the option, if they had the ability to remove guns from from every private individual in the United States, they absolutely would. So to say that, oh, you can't do this to trans people because they'll take your guns, if they get the chance, if they have the ability, they're going to do that anyway.
The other thing to consider, too, is that we have continually tried to maintain this classical liberal approach to we must protect the rights of everybody, even our enemies. And what we've learned is that communists have exploited that for the past several generations to burn us to the ground. So my attitude's shifted, and I'm more like, if you're in favor of gun rights for all, and you've fought for the protection of 2A and 1A, I'll defend you as well, regardless of what economic system you want. But if you're a commie who's tried taking guns away from other people, when they come for your guns, I'm going to put my feet up and say, I am helping you.
I have the same mentality with everyone I meet. You treat people as well as you can the first time you meet them, and after that, you treat them as they treat you. Otherwise, if you don't apply a principle of reciprocity, you get exploited. I will just say before Tate chimes in, I think that if they're going to do this, it won't be on the diagnosis of gender dysphoria strictly, because then you'll have, people with depression or a history of depression having their guns taken away. It might be that people are on currently HRT in the same way that it exacerbates violent symptoms, something like SSRIs or testosterone replacement does.
Yeah. Well, yeah, even then, even there even is an argument. This is kind of like, it's the same argument we had the flag burning, is like, if you do look at the founders' view on these sorts of things, on the Second Amendment, is they did have the English common law tradition of lunatics. It's like the Second Amendment is predicated on responsible gun ownership, and that's why you had in colonial governments and early state governments restrictions on like felons, on loyalists, ironically, which is pretty funny, and then lunatics, because it was like there was this understanding that this is a protection of responsible gun ownership. So I think it's a perfectly valid question for the Trump administration to ask is, okay, these people clearly aren't responsible, and the fact that they're not predisposed to violence, it's like, well, they're predisposed to violence against themselves. We see that on a very regular basis. So it's like, I think there's room here for this argument that the Trump administration is making just on constitutional grounds.
It's funny you mentioned HRT, because I saw that the Department of Defense, or the Department of War, the future Department of War, has started looking into testosterone and steroid use for the special forces. They're not actually as against it as they used to be. They're like, maybe we should start testing to see if this is actually going to help the guys out.
But that's fine if you're pointing your guns at a bunch of jihadists in a desert. But if you're pointing at a school bus, it might be.
I want super soldiers. If the D boys want to do juice, let the D boys do juice. Okay.
Well, so here's an argument then. Like when we have serial killers, why don't we just pair drop them into enemy nations?
Yeah, that's not actually a bad idea. I mean,
French Foreign Legion does that.
Yeah,
Do they really?
Yeah. They get like psychos from around the world and just put them in an army. It's awesome.
It's like Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Bomb in their neck.
They just go to there's guys from West Africa that are like hardened criminals, and they go to the French Foreign Legion, go back to West Africa and just settle score of like 10 years.
Well, that's why Britain was so peaceful. Like you had about 1 to 2% of the population axed every year via hangings, and then the rest of the crazy people went into the army and then either administered in the Caribbean or got blown up. And there you go. It's a more sensible way of doing it.
It's getting crazy.
Though, to be fair, the trans battalion, if you did have one, they would take like 40% casualties before you even engage the enemy. So I don't think it's a sustainable strategy.
Yeah.
I think, we were talking about, we're in the off season for everything, political and news related. The election cycle's over. It's not just that the election cycle is over and we're on off year. After Trump lost, in whatever way you want to say he lost in 2021, we did not have nearly the kind of apathy and drop off in politics that we're seeing now. And I think the reason is, I think we've won substantially more than we realize. You're saying Nigel Farage is going to be the prime minister?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard swing. You know what I mean?
It's a hard swing, definitely. I don't think it's any doubt as to whether or not Nigel Farage is going to win the next election, barring unprecedented and unforeseeable political circumstances. However, the manner in which he wins is questionable. The last time I was here, we were discussing the fact that reforms seem to have been tracked softer on things like mass deportations. And when we discussed that, it got a fair few 100,000 views. And I happen to know now that Nigel Farage has been, after a year of denouncing them, he's now said, I am in favor of mass deportations. Now, he said he's not going to do the Tom Homan approach. And he said he's only going to deport men who are criminals. He's not going to deport the families with them, which is obviously a problem, because then if you deport a guy's dad, he's going to then, especially if he is of the Islamic faith, become radicalized in your own country and be radicalized against you. So you do actually have to send all the families with them. And now you've got the Conservative Party leader in waiting, because they're going to axe the current Conservative Party leader, replace him with Robert Jenrick, who's come out today and said, we need a decade of net emigration, and I will deport every single legal immigrant in the country. So you're getting an arms race in the UK now as to who is the most credible to copy Trump and conduct mass deportations.
I will stress, so basically the point was, everybody in the political space is seeing a decline in viewership. One of the reasons why we've been working on the Culture War podcast over the past several months is because we understand that news, people don't need news anymore. Everybody already knows. It's like, and when it comes to news commentary, there's too much. And so we need debates and spaces. So viewership is down across the board for everybody. But it's not just that we're in an off season. It's that we have made such tremendous gains. There's no more fear and silent majority like we used to have. It's not a big deal anymore if you're a celebrity and you come out and you say that you support Trump. I mean, Chris Pratt does he does hollow commercials where he's like, please pray with me. We're seeing more and more stuff like that. And I think it's a good thing. But this means that, 7-8 years ago, there were a lot of people that were terrified. They were in their workplace. They were silenced. They were told they had to say things that weren't true. And then they would go online and they'd watch all these videos and all these shows that kind of helped them. They knew that they weren't alone. They saw this. Now I go on Instagram and it's just like guys in Burger King hats, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And they have millions upon millions of views. I showed Connor a video earlier where it had like 400,000 shares. And what was it? Like a black woman screaming she wanted to EBT or something. And I'm just like, listen, they're jokes. They're based on racist tropes. They're funny. Doesn't mean I don't care. I'm not going to rag on a race. It's like, they're just jokes. They make fun of white people, black people, Asians. But Instagram is allowing it. And I'm like, that's how much it's shifted. So I feel like there's a lot of people right now, especially right now, it's summer. The fear is gone. Trump has won. The change is coming. The deportations are coming. Like these things, the things we want, like nature is healing. And so the stress has kind of been released.
That's wonderful for you guys. I'm glad you guys are tired of winning. At the moment, we're on the precipice of street violence. People are waving the national flag as a symbol of protest in my own country. And when your own flag becomes a symbol of protest, it shows you how bad things have gotten. We've got a migrant sex offense every single day. We've got like 50,000 illegals pouring in over boats every single year.
We still have all that bad stuff too. I'm just saying
crazy problems, sure, but
well, I mean, no, but like, we still have these bad things happening. We still have these narco gangs. We still have all that. It's just that the average person feels like we're seeing the results.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you say like Nigel Farage is tracking to win, like you are also seeing results. Now, what I will stress, 7 AFD politicians dead in a few days.
Yeah.
And,
looks suspicious.
The left is not just, walking away.
Bear in mind as well, our election is almost guaranteed to be at least another 4 years away. And it's more likely that we get imminent civil unrest before another election. As much as I would actually say, like, I hope you guys just win. And if there is a civil war in the UK, I volunteer to join the Expeditionary Force and go and help liberate the British Patriots. The Beanie Battalion can parachute in. I mean, you were joking, well, half joking, on X the other day, but I will say
about conquering the UK.
Yeah, but temporarily liberating. Even Cromwell himself was temporary. Of course, England always needs a king. However, the interventions by the American State Department and Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee have been more than welcome, because just like the Biden administration was meddling in Silicon Valley and had implications for Europe and the UK, Keir Starmer's Labour government have been meddling in American tech. They've been meddling in American politics, and so you guys have needed to wade in. And the fact that you felt the need to wade in has created much more breathing room for UK patriots to operate in their politics.
What I'm going to do, okay, after the coalition of volunteers secures control of the UK, we will install Milo Yiannopoulos as viceroy temporarily, until a new parliamentary system is reestablished, and then we'll have to name you a new king after removing the royal family, for which I believe the Benjamins notably Carl Benjamin and his family, will become the new monarchs of the UK.
Long may he reign.
So long to the House of Windsor. Hello to the House of Benjamin.
Yes! Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.